Making headlines this hour, President Dr. Mohamed Moise was granted a private audience with His Majesty King Charles III of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Vice President Hussein Mohamed Latif meets with members of the Nadella Island Council to discuss the island's pressing development needs. For public comment. President Dr. Mohamed Moise was granted a private audience with His Majesty King Charles III of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland in a significant engagement highlighting the strong relationship between the Maldives and the UK. During the audience at Windsor Castle, the President and His Majesty discussed ways to further strengthen the long-standing ties between the Maldives and the United Kingdom. This high-level meeting comes just days ahead of the 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two nations, commemorating 6 decades of partnership and mutual respect. President Moise arrived in the United Kingdom on July 16th for a series of high-level diplomatic engagements aimed at reinforcing the long-standing relationship between Male and London. The visit coincides with the 60th anniversary of former diplomatic ties between the two countries. He was received with ceremonial honours by senior British officials, including Major Jeremy Fern, TDDL, Special Envoy of the King and Representative Deputy Lieutenant for the London Borough of Waltham Forest, Gordon Wetherell, CMG, Special Representative of the Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs, and Irtisham Adam, High Commissioner of the Maldives to the United Kingdom and Ireland. Vice President Hussein Mohamed Latif meets with members of the Nadella Island Council to discuss the island's pressing development needs. During the meeting at the President's office, Council members outlined several urgent priorities, including land reclamation, harbour development, the establishment of sports facilities, and the expedited construction of a new school building. They also emphasized the importance of developing tourist resorts in Huadu Atoll to create employment opportunities for local residents. The Vice President assured Council members that their concerns would be addressed through the appropriate government channels. He reaffirmed the administration's commitment to harbour development, describing it as a key initiative prioritized by President Dr. Mohamed Moise. He also highlighted ongoing efforts to expand employment prospects for young people and to improve access to sports and recreational activities. Parliament opens the proposed laws on trademark and intellectual property for public comment. The Parliament said the opportunity to submit comments on the proposed new laws is open for the general public, businesses, artists and relevant experts until 11 am after 22nd July. Comments can also be sent to the Parliamentary Economic Committee at economiccommittee@majlis.gov.mv or in writing to the Parliament Secretariat. The government submitted a sweeping trademark bill to Parliament seeking to reinforce the country's intellectual property regime while advancing the interests of domestic producers and artists on 14th July. The draft legislation introduced by Madhubari lawmaker Ahmed Zahir on behalf of the administration outlines a system of formalizing trademark registration, clarifying ownership rights and establishing firm legal mechanisms to combat infringement and counterfeiting. Under the proposal, a trademark is defined as any sign that distinguishes the goods or services of one entity from another. Exclusive rights would be granted only upon official registration, enabling holders to block unauthorized commercial use of similar or identical marks, particularly in cases where such use could cause confusion over the origin of a product or service. The bill also outlines conditions under which these protections would not apply. A day later, the government introduced a bill to the Parliament to establish a special Maldives Intellectual Property Office tasked with the protection, promotion and enforcement of intellectual property rights in the Maldives. The bill, moved by ruling party lawmaker Hussein Hamid, seeks to establish a robust system for the protection and promotion of intellectual property in the country, encourage ingenuity and creativity in the business sector while facilitating the economic development of the country. The types of intellectual property protected by the Act include trademarks, copyrights, patents, industrial designs, and geographical indications. The bill also aims to establish a government office called the Modi's Intellectual Property Office and define its responsibilities and powers, which includes the compilation of an intellectual property register, strengthening relations with international organizations, and facilitating the country's entry into international intellectual property treaties. The Parliamentary Economic Committee is looking to complete the review of both bills by 10th August. Recent statistics from the Ministry of Tourism and Environment shows the number of active tourist establishments in the country has reached 1,227, marking a 1.7% increase from the 1,207 facilities recorded at the close of 2024. This expansion has raised the total bed capacity within the industry to 64,373. The increase reflects sustained momentum in the country's tourism sector, which continues to register a sharp rise in international arrivals and diversification across accommodation categories. Tourism infrastructure now spans 175 resorts, 877 guest houses, 159 safari vessels, and 16 hotels. Bed capacity is distributed across these categories, with resorts accounting for 44,047 beds, guest houses 14,854, safari vessels 3,162, and hotels 2,310. Resorts remained the dominant choice of accommodation, hosting 72.8% of tourists during this period, while guest houses accounted for 22.3% of stays and hotels accommodated 2.7%. Visitor numbers have climbed in tandem with infrastructure growth, according to Tourism Ministry data. So far this year, the Maldives has welcomed 1,195,693 tourists, an increase of 9.5% compared to the 1,092,367 arrivals recorded during the same period in 2024. Much of this growth has been fueled by demand from key source markets. China leads with 163,370 visitors, followed by Russia with 139,388, and the United Kingdom with 114,703. The government is seeking to build on last year's milestone of attracting 2 million tourists. A target of 2.3 million visitors has been set for the end of 2025, supported by a series of initiatives aimed at strengthening and expanding the tourism sector. The Ministry of Higher Education, Labour and Skills Development says it has disbursed over $5.40 million to students pursuing higher education under the Higher Education Scholarship Scheme so far this year. According to the ministry's latest statistics, $5.4 million has been disbursed as scholarships so far this year for a total of 107 students, comprising 72 female students and 35 male students. Of these, 27 students have completed their higher education programs under the scholarship scheme, including 21 female and 6 male graduates. The statistics also shows that a total of $21.5 million has been disbursed until now to 305 students with 207 female and 98 male beneficiaries. While 131 students have graduated under scholarship schemes, these include 75 female and 56 male students. The Minister of Higher Education, Labour and Skills Development, Dr. Ali Haider, previously stated that higher education loan schemes no longer carry interest or administrative fees, following President Dr. Mohamed Moises' decision to make these loans Sharia compliant. The Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Welfare stresses on the pressing need to strengthen the country's borderline quarantine facility in order to effectively combat the spread of plant pests and diseases. Speaking on PSM News, Rajya Program, Director General of Animal Welfare Hamid Ibrahim Full said Similar to other countries, Maldives also needs to quarantine imported plants at the borderline quarantine facility. Hamid said the existing quarantine facility has been demolished, adding that the ministry has secured the required approval from the Maldives airport to develop a brand new facility. He attributed the present spread of plant diseases to the lack of proper quarantine facility, adding that a well-equipped facility remains pivotal to combat the spread of diseases among both plants and animals. Hamid also revealed that the ministry has drafted the regulation on protected plant species in the Maldives. The government has launched several initiatives to promote the agricultural industry and increase the safety of agricultural produce in the Maldives. The ongoing efforts to establish a national laboratory to address the concerns of farmers and ensure the safety of agricultural products marks a significant milestone of the government's vision. Under this project, the quality of agricultural products and the standards of chemicals used will be strengthened, enhancing the safety of vegetables and fruits produced in the Maldives and facilitating the production of healthy food products. Divehi Investment Partners (DIP) signed a strategic partnership agreement with HNB Investment Bank of Sri Lanka. DIP Chairman Abdul Wahid Tawfiq told PSM News that the agreement will facilitate better services to Maldivian businesses, including more investment opportunities, financial assistance, and business expansion expertise. He said one of the biggest benefits of the agreement signed with HNB Investment Bank is that Maldivian businesses will be able to exploit this partnership to address their most pressing needs. DIP is an investment management and financial advisory firm focused on raising capital and providing tailored financing solutions to companies through the Maldivian capital market. DIP is currently working with reputable companies in bringing investment offerings to the Maldivian capital market. European shares rises after 4 consecutive sessions of losses. The pan-European Stoxx 600 index was up 0.7%. All the major regional indexes traded higher, with Germany's trade-sensitive DAX up 1% leading the pack. Investors waited for clarity on US-EU trade talks as the bloc raided retaliatory measures if ongoing negotiations with Washington failed. Jürgen Molnar, head of capital markets of Robo Markets, also addressed recent criticism of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell by US President Donald Trump, calling the notion of firing Powell practically impossible in America. On July 16th, US President Donald Trump eased market anxiety after denying reports that said he was planning to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell soon. He, however, confirmed that he had floated the idea with Republican lawmakers and renewed his criticism of the Fed chief for not cutting interest rates. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co., TSMC, the world's main producer of advanced artificial intelligence AI chips, posted a 60% jump in second quarter profit to record levels that handily beat market forecasts on July 17th, though US tariffs and a strong Taiwan dollar could weigh on its outlook. Benefiting from surge in demand for advanced chips used in AI applications, TSMC said net profit for April-June climbed to 398.3 billion Taiwan dollars or 13.53 billion US dollars, its fifth straight quarter of double-digit growth. That was well ahead of 377.9 billion Taiwan dollars LSEG Smart estimate drawn from 20 analysts. Trump's trade policies and threats to put tariffs on semiconductors have created much uncertainty for the global chip industry, and TSMC, whose customers include Apple and Nvidia. TSMC announced plans for a $100 billion US investment with Trump at the White House in March, on top of $65 billion pledged for 3 plants in the state of Arizona, one of which is up and running. Taiwan listed shares in TSMC surged some 80% last year, but have climbed just 5% for the year to date on worries about tariffs and unfavorable currency exchange rates. Displaced Palestinians from Rafah rejects an Israeli scheme to move hundreds of thousands of already uprooted Palestinians to a so-called humanitarian city in Gaza, expressing their hope to return to Rafah and rebuild their homes.
Satellite imagery showed recently damaged areas in Rafah, Gaza, with more buildings flattened out. The scheme has led politicians to spar with the defense establishment, but officials say a practical plan has yet to be crafted. Even without a clear blueprint, opposition critics have denounced the proposal, with some likening the suggested site to a concentration camp, which could lead to ethnic cleansing in the coastal enclave devastated by 21 months of conflict. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's administration has defended the project, saying it would offer civilians a safe haven while further weakening Hamas militants' grip on Gaza, but it remains unclear whether it is a concrete government policy. The idea was floated by Defense Minister Israel Katz earlier this month, and Netanyahu convened with the minister and defense officials to discuss it late on the 13th of July. The military had been asked to put together a detailed proposition, but Netanyahu dismissed it as far too costly and complicated. Two Israeli officials who were present said, and ordered them to come up with something cheaper and faster. An Israeli military source said it was a complex initiative that required intricate logistics for infrastructure such as sewage, sanitation, medical services, water, and food supplies. The source further added that planning was in a very initial phase only, and the goal was to supposedly help Palestinians who do not want to live under Hamas rule. A far cry from the reality that faces Palestinians as Israel continue to commit its genocide. Some commentators have suggested the real aim of floating the plan was to increase pressure on Hamas during ongoing ceasefire talks, while also appeasing right-wingers in the cabinet who oppose any truce. Netanyahu's office and the Israeli military did not respond to media outlets on further questioning, adding further doubt to the real motive behind the scheme. Katz outlined the plan on the 7th of July at a briefing with Israeli military correspondents. It followed a proposal by U.S. President Donald Trump, which was publicly embraced by Netanyahu but widely criticized abroad, for Gazans to move to third countries while the battered enclave was rebuilt. Almost all of Gaza's population of more than 2 million people had already been uprooted during the genocide.
Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Shara says that protecting Druze citizens and their rights is priority as Israel vowed to destroy Syrian government forces attacking Druze in southern Syria. Shara was addressing Druze citizens in his first televised statement after powerful Israeli airstrikes on Damascus on July 16th. He said, quote, "and defending our people," end of quote. Israel's airstrikes blew up a part of Syria's defense ministry and hit near the presidential palace as it vowed to destroy government forces attacking Druze in southern Syria and demanded they withdraw. The attacks marked a significant Israeli escalation against Shara's Islamist-led administration. They came despite his warning ties with the US and his administration's evolving security contacts with Israel. Barcelona's teenage sensation Lamine Yamal poses with his new number 10 shirt during a ceremony marking his contract extension.
Just 3 days after his 18th birthday, Yamal signed a new deal that will keep him at the Spanish championships until 2031. The winger, who played a key role in helping Barca win La Liga and the Copa del Rey with 18 goals and 25 assists in 55 matches, will inherit the club's historic number 10 shirt, previously worn by legends such as Diego Maradona, Ronaldinho, and Lionel Messi. Asked about the responsibility of wearing the number 10, Yamal said that every player has their own history and that he will focus on enjoying during the upcoming season. On the 14th of July, a Spanish disability rights group announced plans for legal action over the reported hiring of people with dwarfism as entertainment at Yamal's recent 18th birthday party, calling the practice discriminatory. Yamal celebrated his coming of age on the 12th of July with a star-studded event attended by celebrity guests from the music industry including Bizarrap, Badial, and Quevedo, as well as social media influencers and many of his teammates. When asked about the controversy, Yamal stated that his sports and personal life should remain separate.
A rare juvenile Ceratosaurus fossil sells for $30.5 million at Sotheby's in New York, more than 7 times its low estimate, making it the third most expensive dinosaur ever auctioned.
According to Sotheby's press release, 6 bidders competed over 6 minutes by phone, online, and in person before the specimen was sold to a phone bidder represented by Dr. Matthew Hofferth, head of sale for natural history at Sotheby's. The Curtosaurus now joins the ranks of other high-profile dinosaur sales at Sotheby's, including Apex, which fetched $44.6 million in 2024, a Gorgosaurus that sold for $6.1 million in 2022, and Sue the T-Rex, which brought in $8.4 million in 1997. According to Sotheby's, the new owner plans to loan the specimen to an institution, citing its scientific and cultural significance.
It's incredibly rare to find a complete skull. All of the little fine bones are present, and it was found disarticulated, which is really important. Some skulls you'll find are found fossilized in one block, but all of the pieces were disarticulated, and that means that you can actually take them off the mount and study each one individually. So scientifically, it's really important to have a skull like that because you can study it.
The specimen was unearthed in 1996 at the Bone Cabin Quarry in Wyoming and had previously been exhibited in unmounted form at the Museum of Ancient Life in Utah. It is the second most complete Curtosaurus ever discovered after the original holotype at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. The extinction of the dinosaurs had long puzzled scientists, with various hypotheses offered from the plausible to the ridiculous. Some even proposed that the shrew-sized mammals of the time ate up the dinosaur eggs. In 1980, researchers identified a layer of sediment dating precisely to the end of the dinosaur age, containing high concentrations of iridium, an element common in meteorites, indicating a huge space rock had struck Earth. The Chicxulub crater at Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, 112 miles or 180 kilometers wide, subsequently was identified as the impact site of the asteroid that wiped out 3/4 of Earth's species, including the dinosaurs. Hatton said the juvenile Curtosaurus is estimated to sell from $4 million to $6 million, but she added that the market will determine its value. Sotheby's launched its annual Greek Week auction series running from July 2nd to 17, featuring items from space, science, and natural history. The highlight of this year's sale is the juvenile Curtosaurus skeleton.
That concludes news for now. Thank you for watching PSM News. Have a good day.